Ah, Christmas time. Most everyone's favorite time of year. Celebrating traditions with family and friends, baking those delicious cookies, or making that homemade fudge, decorating the Christmas trees, stringing the lights, or maybe even putting together that Christmas village, complete with a train that chugs through the town. For many, there are vivid memories of special family outings visiting the downtowns of major cities like Cleveland, Ohio, where dozens, if not hundreds, would gather outside and in front of department store displays like the one shown here in front of Higbee's in the early 1930s. Oh, and it was a special treat if you went later in the evening and got to see the entire downtown area in glimmering lights and have a chance to enjoy all the store and business decorations, such as seen in the photo here, taken outside of Higbee's in the early 1950s. And who could ever forget Halle's department store, the home of Mr. Jingling, Santa's keeper of the keys, and especially their window displays, such as from A Christmas Carol, which exhibited in the late 1970s. The modern day Christmas time experience in downtown Cleveland is still very nice, with grand lighting ceremonies and plenty of things to do and see. However, something's still missing from the Christmas of old. But if you think the old-fashioned Christmas time experience is lost or gone forever, you might want to think again. In fact, you might want to make your way here to Hixson's in Lakewood, Ohio, just a short drive from downtown Cleveland. You just haven't experienced Christmas until you've experienced Hixson's. And that's where we're going today, and we invite you to come along with us on this episode of History and Relics. Once you've arrived in Lakewood, Ohio, just look for the giant Raggedy Ann doll in the front window. You can't miss it. And this Raggedy Ann doll made a cameo in the 1983 movie A Christmas Story, a great holiday classic set in the 1940s and was partially filmed right here in Cleveland. Upon opening the door, you're instantly greeted and transported back in time, reminiscent of an old five and dime with bells on the door that jingle when you step in, decorations hanging on the wall and ceiling fitting the season, and a whole array of assorted candies at the front counter along with many little whatnots for sale. The fun-filled pathways throughout the store allow you to meander at your leisure and capture the many treasures of the season, including the floral arrangements, religious and nativity figurines, classic village pieces that allow you to create your own Christmas scenes, and eventually you're drawn back to the great room that highlights the classic and timeless Christmas gallery. So let's sneak in and see what we find. The Christmas gallery is filled to the rafters with Christmas gems, both old and new. There's dozens of handcrafted wreaths or the supplies to make your own. And if you take a look at the top ledge, you'll find some of the actual figurines used in Halle's department store displays, such as from A Christmas Carol. Here we see Bob Cratchit and Scrooge, Tiny Tim, and one of the three spirits that visit Scrooge on Christmas Eve. Here's another original display set featuring Alice in Wonderland. Then you'll come upon a magnificent display of handmade, hand-blown glass ornaments that were all designed by Bill Hixson himself. These wonderful pieces, now retired, once graced the White House Christmas trees, where Bill has been a commissioned decorator for nearly 40 years, starting with the Reagan administration. Now, while these ornaments are no longer available, Bill continues to design to this day, and you can purchase any number of his specially designed ornaments, including those that will adorn the White House Christmas tree this year. Some of you might be wondering by now, who is Bill Hixson? Well, some of you might know him as Mr. Christmas. He is the owner and founder of Hixson's. And if you've been a good boy or girl this year, you just might be able to catch him and have him personally sign your ornament to yourself or to your loved one. As part of our trip today, Mr. Hixson graciously took time out of his busy day and sat down with us to share some of the highlights and personal stories on his life and of those who've helped him along the way. He also talks about his famous ornaments that so many of us cherish. Well, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And look,
enjoy what I do.
it shows. It absolutely shows. And I took some notes. I took your advice the other day when I met with you, and I took down some notes. And I jotted down a few things about Hixson's Inc. And a little bit of your history. And I came up with a few questions, some about the business, some about the ornaments, some about you personally. And hopefully there's something in there that we can touch upon that not everybody knows, and something a little different for folks.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can tell you how I got started.
Okay.
When I was very, very young, probably about 6 or 7 years old. I was in Parma, we were living out there. And my mother said to me, told me the very first legend I'd ever heard. The legend was that the family finds the bird or the bird's nest on the Christmas tree as health, wealth, and happiness for the following year. Now, I was a Depression baby, so there's a bird's nest right near you, right there. You put your hand on it.
One of the red birds?
That's the bird. There should be a nest right around the corner there.
Oh yeah, this one?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Anyway, you don't really use a real one unless it just happens to be by mistake that it gets covered when you cut it. But you should never take a bird's nest out of off a tree and use it, because they come back every year to that same nest. So it's against the laws there. So we sell little ones made out of straw and that type of thing.
Okay.
Now, as a Depression baby, I was born in 1929. We did get health and happiness. The third part, wealth, that didn't come until 1960, 1934, 1935.
Okay.
My father finally got a full-time job.
Okay.
I was too young to know it, but my parents said that they lost 2 homes during the Depression, and we ended up out in Parma.
Huh.
And that was a great little area.
Okay.
I remember, I always liked plants, always. My mother grew nasturtium, and we're cutting it and taking it to the grade school under my teacher. And he told me that when I was very, very young, the neighborhood had a plant that waited 6 or 7 years to have it come into bloom. I went over to my neighbor's yard and picked that flower. Now that was not a very nice thing to happen, but you can see my interest has been always into plants and flowers and growing things. And everything connected to it.
Huh.
So now, this bird's nest is beginning a little bit, because I'm Scotch, Irish, Welsh, and 50% Russian. And we Irish love to tell stories, so I quickly graduated to these stories. And now we have between 300 to 400 stories when you buy an ornament here. For example, if I give you a hedgehog, so what? It's the story behind it makes that
Exactly.
particular figure.
Exactly.
As the story said, the hedgehog has magical powers in Japan. It's almost as popular as the teddy bear in this country. However, it has that magical power, the legend goes. And it was being chased in the house. The houseman, she got rid of him with a broom. He quickly changed himself into a porcelain teapot, knowing full well no houseboy ever would have had a porcelain teapot with a broom. But she was more clever than him because she picked up that teapot, put it in a hot stove, and out popped the head, the tail, and the feet of that hedgehog. So we have the hedgehog, plus we also have a little hedgehog teapot. So there's many different stories. So it's a symbol of mischief and ingenuity.
Okay. So when you started out in floristry,
Yes.
you not only practiced here in the Cleveland area, but now you practiced in Japan as well.
Well, I started off in Cleveland. I wanted to be Helen Kohler. That was a girlfriend of mine when I was about 17, maybe 16. And I said to her, should I be a farmer or should I be a doctor? To be a farmer. I said, okay, I'll be a farmer. I'm glad I didn't. I don't think I'd like to be a doctor. Anyway, so I grew plants and so forth. And I didn't intend to go to college. I went to Mercer's Flowers at 25th Street, and I got a job there. I was there for a couple of years, and finally went to Noble's Flowers, 1836 West 25th Street, Prospect 16600, back in when I was 19.
Okay.
And Bill Noble was a great guy. He was a great person and liked what I was doing. He said to me, would you like to open up a floral school with me or in a wholesale florist? I said, a wholesale florist costs a lot of money. You have to buy. Once you buy the things that you need for a floral school, we opened. So we opened the Noble, Knoble, Hixson School of Floral Design.
Okay.
By that time, I was finally drafted into the service, so I had to leave and go into all the way out to Fort Lewis in Washington State.
Okay. Were you in the Army or
Army.
Army?
I was in the. We were the people that did the combat engineers. We were the ones that would set up a bridge before anyone else. We were the first to get in, and we'd be the last to leave to blow up the bridges.
Okay.
I never did overseas.
Okay.
When I was there, we would go into for bivouac, and I would find, Washington State is wonderful, but it's so cold. No matter what you wear, you're cold. It's a damp cold, but it was great for the forest. We'd go out to bivouac, and I'd find all these branches, moss and whatnot. I'd box it up and send it to Noble's for the school and for Bill Noble. And whenever I had a furlough for a week or 10 days, I'd come back and teach a school.
Okay.
So I kept doing that. And I was in there for 2 years, 4 days, and 6 hours in there. Liked every minute of it.
I bet.
But when I was the first year there, all rates were frozen. No rates. I became PFC, and that's as far as I went.
Okay.
But I had a job of being a person that took care of all the equipment, so that I finally find out how to get a lot of things in a very small amount of space, which has done well for me here. That's what we do here. You've been in our shop, you see. You have to look above, high, and low, and medium, because there's something all throughout the store. And I learned that for being in service.
Okay.
The last day I was there at the service, I had to, every time they sent any of the lieutenants and the top people who were in charge of us back from the combat engineers over there, I'd have to inventory everything, every time. So we had about 7 or 8 of those people, and they went the very last day I was there. They knew I was going to re-up, and they gave me corporal stripes. So I thought that was a very nice thing for them to do, appreciate what I did.
Well, that's awesome.
But I was doing sergeant's work, not corporate work.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
That's good.
So that's the start of my life. I came back to Nobles, and I have a demonstration coming up very shortly for the Beach Cliff Garden Club over here on Rocky River.
Okay.
And Bill Noble, we were making Ming trees, some moss branches, and actually it was a bonsai tree out of moss and branches.
Okay.
And they wanted me how to do those. So he said, hey, Bill, how can you do it? So he sent me over there to do a picture. I said, but that's going to take a half an hour. How can I fill an hour of that? So I did a full hour of a program, flower arranging and so forth. And by the time I got back to the store after the demonstration, every one of those women got on the phone and called Bill. And Bill Noble thanked him for sending me. And he said to me, Bill Hixson, because you've had this kind of response, you are going to do lectures, demonstrations throughout the Cleveland area. So Beach Cliff Garden Club, I'm going back and talk about how they put me back into that type of thing.
Huh.
Eventually, there was a foam called Oasis, the green foam,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, what we would do in a vase, before they had that foam, we would take chicken wire and put it in the vase, and I wanted to do a centerpiece. I'd have to wire these flowers so they would come down. Otherwise, these flowers would look like a bird taken off and down to the branch and whatnot. But the foam was there was a convention of Teleflora in the Sattler Hotel for the florists, and Mr. Burnham L. Smithers, the owner of the Oasis company, was there, and he had a large dish and this pink foam and 2 layers of chicken wire over on top of it. Now at 19, I guess I was maybe a little bit, I didn't watch what I said very easily. He said, what do you think of it, Bill Hixson? I said, you want me to tell you the truth or shall I lie to you? He said, of course I want to know the truth. I said, that foam isn't holding it, your chicken wire is holding the flowers. But if you did, the chicken wire should be stronger and deeper green. So I thought that would be the end of it. A month later he called and said, Bill Hixson, we'd like you to meet Mrs. Tommy Bright, a famous floral artist, and want you to go along with her across the country to introduce this new foam that's green and much stronger, as you suggested. Now I'm sure I wasn't the only one that suggested it, but I guess you remembered me being nearby. He was some very, just a short distance, in Kent, Ohio.
Okay.
Akron and Kent.
And because you made that suggestion, and being honest,
and with my name there, and saying what I said, he very nicely remembered me. So I went along with Mrs. Tommy Bright, that's her first name, but she was a Tom girl. And we introduced this foam from Norfolk, Virginia to Fall Rivers, Massachusetts, from every major city in America, all the way to Los Angeles, and over a 3-year span.
wow.
And it was very good for me because it really gave me an idea how to lecture even more. I always felt like I was following Rembrandt, and I was a paint by number person, and I had to follow Tommy Bright. Mrs. Bright, at one point we had done a wooden arrangement with, I did a circular around it of flowers, and we put candles in it. They're very thin candles, and this is all done in black and white. We were also representing the Paragon Candle Company from Michigan,
Okay.
and so they would send us a candle we need. Well, this one time they sent us some orange one. I couldn't do it. I wanted them black, so I sprayed them black. Well, Tommy Bright had what she called goober's feather for hair, blonde and teased and teased. Well, she picked up the string. We were doing it from the florist. We went to the department stores as well, so we wanted the public to know about it as well. She picked up the string and started talking about it. Well, then we lit the candles, and one of them stuttered because it was the pain, and she was on fire. She was putting herself on. I thought, dear God, she could talk to the audience and put herself on fire. That's really a master of what she does. So, and she was a great lady, and we learned many things from her. And she also learned things from me because I wrote a book, because when it's, and all the books over there, here's a centerpiece. It's a diamond shape. It has 12 carnations, 18 something else, but didn't how you got to that point. Now, once I know Bill Noble eventually, and the time I was with Tommy Bright, I had left and come to 13615 Detroit Avenue, just down the street. You can see we were in that shop because we were in the middle of that series of stores. And to really be noticed, you were in this one or this one. The middle ones, you get lost. So what I did, I changed the two doors and turned one door in like this.
Okay.
So we became noticed. In fact, one time we had a Christmas in July sale in my store, brought all of the styrofoam and put it in the window and all the things I had for sale. But I had a Santa Claus out there that rang a bell, an artificial one. There was a plain dealer, Cleveland Press, and the Cleveland News. All three of them, and their gossip column had exactly the same thing. Traffic stopper, Bill Hixson's Santa Claus Christmas in July sale in front of his store. What they didn't know, we had 3 accidents. People would stop to look at that, and we finally had to take the Santa Claus in.
That's
So
funny.
that was our start there.
That's great.
Eventually we came and looked at a property here. It was a car wash. And Fian and O'Brien were a couple of lawyers. They owned the property. Said they would build us a property if we would move there. And we said, fine, we would do it. And we built in front of that, and they wanted to tear down that car wash. I said, no. We can use that car wash inside because there's a john in it, and upstairs we could use it for our office, and below we could use it for our workplace.
So that's what this originally was?
It's still there.
Wow. Okay.
It's the second building as you come in. You look up, you can still see the water lines, and it's more rustic than the rest of it.
Okay.
So we built
I
in
never
front.
knew that.
Built in front, and then a couple of years later we built behind, and now further back and whatnot. And every time that we built, we paid for the building, but they raised our rent on us. So we finally got to the point where they said either you're going to have to sell it to us or we're going to move out. They didn't believe us, but we went down the street. There was a place that right as you turn the corner on Detroit Road, and there's a big building that was, I think they were having furniture and so forth in it, and they were wanting to put something new in it, and I went and talked to him and said, right, we're going to move, how much you want the rent and whatnot. But he was a friend of Fian and Brian, got back. The next day they came back and said, we'll sell it to you. So this has been a good thing.
And that was
Fian?
1959 when you moved here?
1959.
Okay. Okay.
No, 1979. It was a number of years.
Oh, 70. Okay. Okay. So it was a number of years.
We
later.
had a number of years down the street.
Okay.
I remember one year selling Christmas trees, and one of my friends that was in service when they, Bob Folger had proposed to this young lady, Nancy. We didn't have money for the ring. I took the money that we sold the trees for and gave him the money for the ring. He just recently passed away.
Really? Oh,
One of my best friends all these years.
that's neat.
So
That's
we've
a neat
moved here,
story.
and really we're still basically florists, but I had been selling ornaments, nothing like this, but the little ones, Santa Clauses and angels and teddy bears and so forth.
So what took you from the floral design to you now, essentially, you're known as Mr. Christmas. So how did that transition kind of
Well,
happen?
It started that we had this whole space back here, and we rented it to Baycrafters used it for one of their jury shows because they didn't have a place out there yet. And we did other things, and eventually we, at the holidays, had set up back here for Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember at one time, we weren't here yet, the next room was, we had a long walkway, and things on the left and the right of it, and it had about 15 tables with merchandise, Christmas merchandise. But I wanted trees, but I put a tree on top of it, you wouldn't be able to see merchandise. So I turned all the trees upside down and hung it from the ceiling. Now this is before anybody knew that you could do that.
Or even before these upside down trees were even the in thing.
Well, actually, we looked in Germany, in early Germany, many of the trees are upside down over a table. And the wonderful thing about the ornaments, when you hang it on a tree upside down, the ornaments, every one shows that it's hanging this way. It's not pushed into the tree itself. So, you know, if you wait long enough, everything that's old comes into things.
Once was old is now new again.
Yeah, like I'm still waiting for real narrow ties to come back. So anyway, and then some of those people that were in the art show were people that were connected to the newspapers, and one of them wrote at one time, if you haven't experienced Christmas at Hixson's, you have not experienced Christmas in Cleveland. And that started us off.
That's great. That's great. I have to agree with that statement. I have to agree with that.
Well, I love what I do, and I'll never retire. I'm 91 at this time, and I hope I go another 20, 30 years, God willing.
God willing.
I'm in good health, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
My one leg gives me a little bit of a problem. The VA doctor, I told him that, and he said, what's wrong with it? I said, I don't know. It's not as strong as the other. But I said, I guess that when you're 91, you got to accept what you have. So, can't complain.
Now, as far as, and we touched on this the other day, and I'd like to have you expand upon that. You mentioned, you know, and when you walk throughout the store, you have ornaments not only from all around the world, but for every interest, or nearly every interest, and for every price range. So was this part of your original design too, to kind of touch everyone?
Well, the thing is, when I was growing up, we bought dime store Mary's Joseph's and the Babe, the little plaster ones, and Pop made a little crush for it. The next year we bought the Three Kings. Next year we bought the shepherds and the sheep. We kept on adding. Now that became part of my growing up. Christmas morning we always added the baby Jesus. Christmas started at that point. However, we would head it up earlier, naturally. But I remember those things that cost 10 cents, 20 cents. So I thought we should do things that people could afford when in the store. We have a whole series of Golden Ages, about 8 of them there down the street. They moved our hospital away from us. All 8 of those hospitals, Golden Age homes, came here to Lakewood because of the hospital, and they should never have moved it. Anyway, it's gone. But in any case, they don't have a lot of money. For example, right now I have a little wreath, about so big, with a little corner, only for $2. I've made that for the Golden Ages. It costs more. It costs more than $2 to get it, but I want those people because they talk about us.
Yeah.
That's our best advertisement. It isn't the newspapers or television or whatever it might be. The best part of it is your word of mouth. So I'm very, very happy to have these people get something they can use at their home that didn't cost them very much money.
That's great.
So there was another company that did some beautiful things called Radco, R-A-D-K-O. And he went to Europe and got the people to make ornaments for him. But his was much more upholstered, I'll say, added and whatnot. So his ornaments would sell for between $35 to $100. Now, people would come in and they would buy an ornament of his ornaments. The florist that had his product had difficulty selling it the next year because they only wanted the new stuff. I've got things here I've had for 40 years because always somebody new that's new to them. It might be everyone else has it, but that one person is going to see it and think it's wonderful. So I wanted to be able to have people that can buy one for Billy, one for Mary, one for Sammy, one for Mama, one for Papa, one for Grandma, one for Grandpa, all the other people. So I could have them ornaments that would be $3 or $4 a piece. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 24. $24 you could get enough that you could get 8, 10 people their ornament. And as you got into more money, you would buy something more expensive, I agree. But we don't have many things. I think these are the ones that we make now for the White House, for example, this one here. This one is $26.95.
Okay.
But next year I'll have a different one. This one is one of the East Side old mansions over there or near the house, near the art museum. So we have
On the east side of Cleveland? Okay.
Holden House, I believe it is.
Okay.
And also we have the Sterling Davis tree ball. Sterling Davis was the largest Christmas tree in America. About 64 feet was the tallest. Sterling Davis is no longer there, but people remember that tree. They had balls about this size on that tree. They would take and use large of the big balls so they could take it. They'd have to take the doors off the front of the Sterling to bring this fresh tree in. And all day long, on Thanksgiving Day, they'd have that ready for the following day. Now, these balls that we have here are the same size, but these are out of plastic. I wanted to have somebody, if they wanted one of those Sterling Davis balls, you can find a few around an antique shop, but they're now $400, $500 a piece. These are only $15 a piece. So if you have a large tree, you can have some of the same feeling of Sterling Linen, but we also have the Sterling Linen ball that has a ball on it, and we have the story that goes all about how many pounds of silver, tinsel, how many balls, how many hours it took, and so forth. So not only did I begin to buy different Christmas ornaments, I finally, one of our salesmen, Peter Kalinka, was one of these really, one of the great old salesmen that had things in his car, and he would say, "We want this or that," and he would dig it out and sell it to you. But he took a whole tour over to Europe one time. This is about 50, 60 years back. And I went with him, and I found these people that were selling the glass ornaments. Bingo. That's how I got started into it. It's a little town called Lauscha, Germany, but it was taken over by Russia, and so many of these Lauscha people had to bring all of their glass ornaments, which was a cottage craft, and the tools to make them to the state factory that Russia controlled. Now, there was an ore town on a little mountain, and so a lot of them came over at midnight bringing their things to sell west, to some of them, but a lot of them moved west into Germany, into the Czech Republic, to Ukraine, whatnot. So now we have people that are still German tradition, but now living in the Ukraine or the Czech Republic or Poland or Austria, all these other places that carry these old traditions.
And that's where your stories come from too, correct? Or most of them?
Stories came from all different sources.
Okay.
Whenever we've met a person who is from the country, it's what's your traditions, and I would take from there.
Okay.
And the tradition. I was in Japan teaching flower arranging at that time, and I got the story about the frog. And frog has been popular in China and in Japan. It has magical powers. It can change at will. So if it wants to do something, it's a symbol of progress, forward motion. It cannot, a frog can jump forward, but it cannot jump left, it cannot jump right. If it wants to get back here sometime, it has to make a huge arc to get back here. So that frog ornament has become very popular because everybody, you need, I need, President needs, everybody in this world needs progress. I don't care who you are, with the most money, the least money, everybody needs progress. For a glass frog is an ideal gift, so you can't miss what's giving that one. But then we also found a story about the pickle. I found that in Germany. It was Neustadt Kober, away from the little town of Lauscha, and there was a little house, a little cottage, and there was a back kitchen, a little back kitchen, a little old lady, and she was made angels and teddy bears and Santa Clauses and many other things that she made. And I bought all those. And she also said, here's the thing you should have, she was the interpreter, the pickle. I couldn't understand the pickle. She said, you hide the pickle on the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Day, if all the family comes, or if you have a whole group of 10 people, 15 people that came to meet at your house that are there, all 10 go, and one finds it and then rehinds it, he has good luck. Next one comes in that one. If a child finds it, get him a little trinket, a piece of candy. Until they become 8 years old. At 8 years old, they should realize a piece of candy is not worth as much as good luck. So then you change the story.
Oh, that's great.
So anyway, that was that story. So I came back here. I bought 1,000 of them because at that time I had an East Side shop, I had a Lorraine store, I had a Victorian cottage in Lakewood, plus this one. I had 4 stores. I thought I could put 200 here, 200 here, 200 here, 200 here, and eventually sell them over a couple of years. I put one $64 ad in the Lakewood, it was the Sun newspaper at that time.
Okay.
And within 10 days, I sold all 1,000 pickles in this store here without ever taking them to the other places. The reason why is that was a time when people were having Christmas parties, and with the idea of where they worked, and the idea that you brought an ornament to give to somebody else. One person brought the pickles. The next day, I had 10 people, 12 people buying pickles. Those 12 went this way. It just spread like a pyramid. Now, I also had all these German people saying to me, a wonderful story, but we're German. We never heard that in Germany. So I went back to the same little town, same little house, same little kitchen, same little lady, and through the interpreter I said, ask her how this gets started. And she answered him, and he laughed. And she did this, and that. And I said, what did she say? She said, maybe some glass-blowing family had too many pickles and started the legend. The legend started right there about 60 years back. Now, that started. Then I began to pick all the other legends up. The legend of the robin, the legend of the
Cardinal too, right? There's...
cardinal, yes, the legend of the bluebird. You know, the story of how the person went looking for the bluebird of happiness all throughout and found that it was when they came back at home, symbol of home values, etc. Etc. The pickle, the pig, and the frog. And the pig, I knew in Germany that the pig was very popular in Germany because it was a symbol of prosperity. So I asked more over there. And the story there is that I asked so many people, what do you have to eat on Thanksgiving, at Christmas, and New Year's as your main course? Black-eyed, I said to Laura Bush, and she said, like black-eyed peas. And I said, no, what's the meat? Well, I said, hemmed and haw. Eventually, people would say ham, but they didn't know why. because they always did it. Grandma always did it. Mom always did it. Great-grandma always had ham on those holidays. I said, well, if you have chicken or turkey as your main course, you can have it as a second, third course. Main course, you're going to scratch for money the whole year long.
Mm-hmm.
If you have fish as your main course, the fish will swim away with your money. But if you have pork, the pig just roosts it up. It's symbol of prosperity. You go over to Germany in November, December, you'll find a marzipan pig with a coin in its mouth. They do carry through on that. So actually, those three things you now have to sell as a symbol of all three in a box. So you have good luck, prosperity, and also forward motion, progress.
That's great.
Well, everyone, that's going to conclude part one of our program, featuring Bill Hixson and his wonderful store, located at 14125 Detroit Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. Please be sure to watch part two, as you don't want to miss any of Bill's other stories or details on his extraordinary career. Bill's going to close for us and let you know more about his store hours and holiday specials going on now. And until next time, everyone, this one's history.
One last thing, we revamped our store since the time we were closed in March until July. So there's more space to walk through. But Christmas is always a very busy time. Many of the people that have been in recently, there's not so many people in the store. So you can come in and really spend as much time as you like and what have you. And also, we decided to welcome those people. We give 10% throughout the store. The entire store, whatever we have, is 10% off. And if you're a Christmas Grass Club member, you get 20% off at Christmas. And sometimes I'm sure some of you people are going to have that red card, because once you get close to $100, you'll get one of those red cards, and then you always get special deals.
Sounds good.
So come in early. We're open daily from 10 until 6, Tuesday through Saturday, until we get close to Thanksgiving, and then we start opening Sunday and Monday as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.